It was one bootleg after another, yet the Eagles seemed completely prepared. Gabriel rolled out only to find barren fields, no open receivers, no rhythm, forcing him to recklessly heave the ball away. The result? A slew of wasted plays and mounting incompletions. His accuracy, already under the microscope, was wildly inconsistent. A handful of crisp throws overshadowed by glaring misses. Breaking news from the Browns-Eagles joint practice: Dillon Gabriel, the man pegged to solidify the backup role, is unraveling. His quiet campaign to keep Shedeur Sanders off the field is collapsing before everyone's eyes. Under relentless pressure from Philadelphia's defense, Gabriel was exposed, sacked on 4 of his 5 snaps. Any chance to establish himself as a steady option evaporated instantly. What makes this more puzzling is head coach Kevin Stefanski's insistence on keeping Gabriel in the number 2 slot ahead of Sanders. Whispers about Sanders' injury continue to swirl, but the reality is simple. He's being sidelined while Gabriel sinks. The question now isn't just whether Gabriel can respond, it's whether this coaching gamble will implode before the season even begins. Reports from the field echoed the same scene: repeated bootlegs, receivers blanketed, and a quarterback left to dump the ball into nothingness. Gabriel looked small under the spotlight, hesitant, shaky, and stripped of composure. Even the Browns running backs found no traction, further magnifying the dysfunction. If Sanders was supposed to be the answer, he still faces a steep climb to prove it. But Gabriel, his collapse is plain for all to see. The numbers are damning. 5 reps, 1 completion, 4 sacks. That's a pitiful 20% success rate in a practice setting. If Gabriel is this overwhelmed here, how can the Browns possibly expect competence under the bright lights of live action? Stefanski's choice to shelve Shedeur and feature Gabriel now looks less like strategy and more like sabotage. The trajectory is obvious. Gabriel is heading toward failure, and when that crash lands, Sanders will be waiting for his opportunity. Fans already know the truth. Nobody outside Berea believes Dillon Gabriel is the superior quarterback to Shedeur Sanders. The Browns have botched quarterback evaluations for decades, and this feels like another chapter in the same sad book. To suggest Gabriel could be a legitimate starter in Cleveland is to ignore history and reality. Even so, Gabriel projects unshakable optimism. He insists he's ready, claiming his first NFL start will be a great game. Confidence is admirable, but bravado won't mask the truth. The evidence is overwhelming. He isn't ready. This isn't a case of 1 or 2 rough practices. This is a pattern, a collapse that screams louder with every snap. Dillon Gabriel's performance has been erratic from start to finish, despite being handed far more opportunities than Shedeur Sanders. When Sanders was sidelined, Gabriel was gifted the stage to prove himself. And what did he do with it? Out of 22 reps, he managed to complete just 11 passes. A flat 50% completion rate, no excuses, no shadow of competition, just him under the spotlight, and he failed to deliver. Be honest, how can anyone genuinely argue Gabriel is the man to lead this franchise? How can a quarterback with such glaring inconsistency be trusted, especially when Sanders, healthy, laser-focused, and consistent, is waiting right there? And for those who think Gabriel's struggles were just an off day, think again. This is no fluke. This is the pattern. Take day 8 of camp, 14 reps, only 3 completions, and 11 wayward throws that missed badly. That isn't rust. That isn't nerves. That's a chronic issue. From the very first snap, the defense read Gabriel like an open book, dissecting his every move. Rhythm, gone. Awareness, missing. Precision, non-existent. The longer it went on, the clearer the contrast with Shedeur Sanders became. Meanwhile, Kevin Stefanski addressed Sanders' injury with unusually cautious language, noting it involved a critical muscle group. Yet the way he spoke, measured, deliberate, almost guarded, only added to the suspicion. Every word sounded like it was carefully filtered, fueling the belief that we aren't hearing the whole truth. And Stephen A. Smith didn't mince words. This wasn't football anymore, it was politics. He argued ownership was subtly steering the narrative, with Stefanski acting as the messenger. The timing felt too perfect, too calculated, designed to suppress Sanders' momentum before it became undeniable. The result, a controversy that leaves fans frustrated, critics enraged, and observers convinced something larger is at play. While Gabriel stumbled through drills, Sanders' presence elevated the offense every single time. The gap between the two wasn't just noticeable, it was impossible to ignore. The numbers sealed the case. Gabriel's 50% completion rate, his collapse on day 8, the missed throws, the lack of composure, the inability to adapt. Defenses have already cracked the code on him, and while he flounders, Sanders continues to showcase poise, accuracy, and leadership, the very qualities the Browns have been starving for. The clock is ticking. How much longer can the coaching staff pretend not to see the truth? With Sanders nearing full health and Gabriel spiraling, the decision becomes unavoidable. Cleveland cannot afford to burn yet another season waiting for a quarterback to figure it out when the solution is already on the roster, the pressure is mounting, and the Browns face a pivotal choice. Will Gabriel somehow rise from the wreckage and prove he belongs? Or is he simply another stopgap destined to crumble under the weight of expectation? One thing is certain, with Sanders ready to seize the mantle, the gap between them is too vast to overlook. So what do you think? Is there still hope for Dillon Gabriel to turn it around? Or has his inconsistency already written the ending to this story? Should the Browns keep riding with him, or is it time to hand the reins to Sanders and embrace the future? Drop your thoughts below, because this debate is just getting started. The haters could keep fuming. Sanders had their attention now, and in the NFL, attention is currency. The only question left was how far he could take it. By the third week of the preseason, the Browns training facility felt different. You could sense it in the weight room, in the meeting spaces, even in the cafeteria. Shedeur Sanders wasn't just a rookie anymore. He had become the gravitational center of the building, not in a loud look at me way. He didn't stroll around with an entourage or stomp his cleats to announce his arrival. His pull was quieter, more magnetic. Guys gravitated toward his lunch table. They lingered near his locker before practice. They jumped into extra throwing sessions after drills. Consciously or not, the roster was hitching its momentum to him. This shift didn't happen because of a single highlight throw or one headline-grabbing game. It was built from the accumulation of moments, practice after practice, drive after drive, where Sanders made the right run, elevated the huddle, or turned a busted play into something positive. That consistency was what truly separated him from Dillon Gabriel, and everyone could feel it. To Gabriel's credit, he never stopped swinging. The brighter Sanders spotlight got, the harder Gabriel worked. He stayed late with the second team offense, threw extra routes with backups and rookies, and stayed professional with the media. But no matter how steady he played, the comparison was inescapable. Sanders wasn't just making good plays. He was making memorable ones, the kind that get retold in the locker room and replayed online. One of those came during a closed practice with no cameras rolling. The starting defense dialed up an all-out blitz during a red zone drill, collapsing the pocket instantly. Sanders sidestepped the rusher, rolled right, and off balance, lasered a rope to Amari Cooper in the back corner of the end zone. Cooper dragged both feet, popped up like it was nothing, and jogged back to the huddle. The sideline erupted. Even defensive backs shook their heads, muttering that that's not supposed to happen in practice. Those are the plays that change how people see you. Coaches began using Sanders tape in meetings, not just for quarterback coaching, but for teaching situational football to the entire offense. Oh, look here, Stefanski said in one film session, freezing the frame as Sanders was about to be hit. Eyes up, feet moving, decision made before the pressure lands. That's why this ball is out on time. It didn't escape the veterans that the head coach was holding up a rookie as the standard. In an NFL culture, that's a signal, one that says this guy's level is worth following. The front office noticed another shift. Media requests for Sanders doubled in 2 weeks. Local shows wanted him in studio. National podcasts wanted him on the phone. Fan events featuring him were drawing record attendance. He'd become Cleveland's most marketable figure before ever taking a regular season snap. That left the team with a choice: play it safe, start Gabriel in week 1, and bring Sanders along slowly, or lean into the momentum, hand the rookie the reins, and accept whatever came with it, good, bad, or chaotic. The decision was already tilting toward the latter. The week before the final preseason game, Sanders took nearly every first-team rep in practice. Gabriel worked with the twos, players read between the lines, and by warm-ups, the vibe was unmistakable, and this was Shedeur's offense. The final preseason game became an unofficial coronation. Sanders played the first half, leading 3 scoring drives on 4 possessions. He didn't force throws or chase heroics. He ran the offense like a veteran, taking what the defense gave him and striking deep only when the timing was right. One drive saw him hit Cooper for back-to-back first downs, then find David Njoku on a seam route for a touchdown. His stat line: 14 for 18, 172 yards, 1 touchdown, no turnovers. Gabriel played the third quarter, accurate, composed, but the crowd's emotional investment had already shifted. They wanted Sanders back. After the game, the locker room was a mix of celebration and quiet inevitability. Veterans congratulated Sanders. Gabriel shook his hand and said, "You earned it." For a man who had just been edged out of the starting job, it was the definition of professionalism. The next morning, Stefanski called both quarterbacks into his office. The meeting was short. Sanders was named the Week 1 starter. Gabriel would be the backup and an important presence in the QB room. They shook hands and walked out. That afternoon, the announcement went public. "Shedeur has earned the opportunity to lead our team," Stefanski told reporters. "He's shown poise, preparation, and command beyond his years." Cleveland reacted instantly. Social media exploded. Team stores saw another spike in jersey sales. National networks treated it like breaking news. The announcement ripped through Cleveland like a surge of electricity. Shedeur Sanders, a rookie, 5th-round selection, and the most polarizing figure in Brown's camp, wasn't merely dressing for his first preseason showdown. He was starting ahead of Dillon Gabriel. The shockwaves hit the NFL discourse before the ink had even dried on the press release. For weeks, the quarterback duel had been framed as a dead heat. Gabriel's experience and steadiness pitted against Sanders' explosiveness and upside. Common logic said the veteran would take the ceremonial first snaps while the rookie eased his way in. But when Cleveland revealed their plan, it was far more than a simple depth chart adjustment. It was a declaration, and not everyone took it gracefully. Gabriel loyalists, already uneasy over Sanders' meteoric rise, flooded social media with indignant calls to respect the process and warnings about rushing a rookie. The backlash was loud, defensive, and laced with panic. Because here's the reality: when a rookie gets tapped to start the preseason opener, it's more than a coaching decision. It's a signal that the balance of power inside the Browns building is shifting. This wasn't some out-of-the-blue stunt. Sanders had been stacking impressive practices, earning praise from veterans, and steadily winning over the locker room. He hadn't had extensive time with the first-team offense, but when those reps came, the proof was undeniable. Quick release, sharp reads, a different energy. Coaches saw it. Teammates felt it. The front office, ever attuned to marketing momentum, understood exactly the storm this would stir up. And buzz barely scratches the surface. The moment the news dropped, Browns fans lit up comment sections with fire emojis, goat icons, and bold predictions. National analysts who doubted Sanders' readiness were suddenly clearing their schedules for kickoff. Even casual NFL followers who hadn't thought about Cleveland in years now had a reason to watch, because whether you're a believer or a skeptic, Sanders is must-see. This debut was more than football. It was a pop culture moment. His college resume had already given him name recognition. His father, Dillon's legendary status, gifted him a ready-made narrative. His confident media presence made him magnetic to some and maddening to others. Supporters called him the franchise's future. Detractors labeled him overhyped. But everyone agreed when Sanders stepped onto the field against the Panthers, it would matter. For the Browns, this was a calculated gamble. Preseason snaps may lack regular season pressure, but they're still a crucible, a measure of command, composure, and adaptability when the script inevitably unravels. Sanders hadn't spent months syncing with the starters. Timing was still developing, yet the staff was ready to throw him into the fire and see how he burned. That choice speaks volumes. One, they trust his ability to seize the moment. Two, they recognize the hype is too potent to sideline. If he dazzles, they have a ready-made franchise fairy tale. If he falters, they can still spin it as a vital learning step. Either way, they dominate the attention economy, a currency nearly as valuable as wins in today's NFL. For Dillon, Gabriel, the optics were brutal. He'd been in this battle from the start, leaning on his experience to keep pace. Now he was watching the rookie take the stage under primetime lights. To his credit, Gabriel handled it professionally in front of cameras, pledging to support the team and stay ready. But behind closed doors, everyone knew the sting was real. By kickoff night, the atmosphere was unmistakably different. Preseason openers usually hum with casual optimism. This one crackled with tension. The battle lines were drawn, and those betting on Sanders' star turn and those bracing for the too soon prophecy to play out. But either way, all eyes were on the Browns' newest lightning rod. Fans in Sanders jerseys poured into the stadium long before kickoff, anticipation hanging thick in the air. Cameras found him during warm-ups, calm, deliberate, headphones on, scanning the field with a veteran's poise. When his name thundered through the PA system, the reaction wasn't polite applause. It was a roar, the kind of October playoff roar you don't hear in August. From the opening snap, Sanders wasted no time justifying Cleveland's gamble. On the first drive, he zipped an 8-yard slant to Jimmy Horn Jr., then followed it with a pinpoint 15-yard strike to Amari Cooper along the sideline. Every throw was crisp. Every cadence carried authority. When Carolina dialed up a disguised blitz on third down, Sanders didn't flinch. He slid within the pocket, reset, and dumped it to his running back for a chain-moving first down. This wasn't just about advancing the sticks when it was about how he was doing it. He looked like he belonged. But for now, he owns the moment. And in the NFL, owning the moment is the first step to carving out a legacy. The morning after Shedeur Sanders' preseason unveiling against Carolina, Cleveland was still humming. Sports radio opened every hour with the same burning question. Is this the start of the Shedeur Sanders era? Callers were split, half ready to crown him QB1, half warning against falling in love with preseason fireworks. But even the skeptics couldn't deny the truth. Sanders' performance wasn't just about numbers, it was about energy, command, presence. Inside the Browns facility, the tone was more measured but equally significant. Coaches dissected every snap, noting crisp footwork, quick reads, and poise under duress, along with the imperfections like a few high throws and a tendency to lock onto his first read. Still, for a rookie with limited first-team reps, it was a statement game. The locker room added its own exclamation point. Veterans who'd been cautious with their praise were now openly backing him. Amari Cooper told reporters, "You can feel it in the huddle. He believes in the play, and that makes you believe in it too." Pro Bowl guard Joel Bitonio noted Sanders' decisiveness and efficiency. Those endorsements carry weight, not just with media, but with the coaching staff. Because in the NFL, trust is the rarest and most valuable currency a quarterback can earn. And Sanders in one night had already started stacking it. The Browns publicly insisted this was still a competition. But after Sanders' electric debut, it felt more like Gabriel was chasing a train that had already left the station. His own outing against the Panthers wasn't bad. He was accurate on the short game, protected the ball, and moved the offense with methodical efficiency. But there was no denying the difference in spark. With Sanders under center, the crowd leaned forward in anticipation. With Gabriel, they leaned back and checked their phones. Gabriel wasn't blind to the shift. The very next practice, he came out firing, pushing the ball downfield, running the huddle with heightened urgency. But urgency cuts both ways. On one deep attempt, he forced a throw into double coverage. The tip pass nearly picked off. The coaches didn't blast him, but the message was etched into the meeting room notes. Don't try to prove it all in one throw. Sanders, meanwhile, just kept stacking consistent days. He wasn't flawless. A couple of red zone misfires, a botched exchange with the running back, but his baseline was smooth and steady. Routine throws looked effortless, and when defenses threw him curveballs, he adjusted instead of unraveling. That adaptability was tested in a midweek scrimmage against Cleveland's starting defense. First series, Myles Garrett blew past the right tackle, forcing Sanders to roll left. Most rookies would have tucked it and scrambled. Sanders kept his eyes downfield, spotted David Njoku dragging across the field, and rifled an 18-yard strike. On the next play, the defense disguised a blitz, sending a linebacker right up the gut. Sanders read it pre-snap, slid protections, and delivered a quick slant to his slot receiver before the rush could land. Plays like that turn heads, not just from coaches, but from defenders. Garrett himself told reporters, "You can't rattle him easy. You get to him once, he'll adjust." That's what you want in a young quarterback. The front office had plenty of reasons to grin. The buzz from Sanders' debut was translating into measurable gains. Ticket sales spiked. Local news was leading with Browns coverage, and his jersey was already the month's top seller. Performance sells, but so does belief, and Sanders was delivering both. Even so, the coaching staff stayed cautious. Kevin Stefanski pulled Sanders aside after practice. It's not about winning the preseason. It's about building for the season. Sanders nodded, taking it in stride. He wasn't chasing headlines. He was chasing readiness. That focus showed in his prep for the next game. Extra route work, with receivers after practice, timing drills against different coverage shells, protection meetings with the offensive line, even film study of the opponent's preseason tape, hunting for tendencies he could exploit. Meanwhile, the overhyped rookie narrative refused to die. Certain media voices kept hammering the idea that preseason flashes don't always translate. Social media debates raged. Highlight clips countered by critics pointing to the vanilla coverages he'd faced, but Sanders stayed silent, letting the arguments swirl without feeding them. That silence was calculated. By keeping the focus on his play, not his mouth, he allowed the field to speak for him, and every day the noise tilted more in his favor. Thank you guys. See you next video.